In her book, The God Who Hung on the Cross, journalist Ellen Vaughn retells the very true and gripping story of how the gospel came to a small village in Cambodia. In September of 1999, there was a Christian missionary who traveled to the province of Kampong Thom in northern Cambodia. This was a very isolated area, and most of the people there practiced some form of primitive animist religion or Buddhism or something like that, but Christianity was virtually unheard of. Now, much to the missionary's surprise, when he arrived in one of the small rural villages, the people there very warmly embraced him and his message about Jesus, and he was shocked by this. So he asked the villagers about their openness to the gospel. And an old woman shuffled forward, grabbed the missionary's hand into her own and said, "We have been waiting for you for 20 years. And then she told him the story of the mysterious God who had hung on the cross that they came to know. So it took place in the 1970s. A brutal communist regime took over Cambodia, and it destroyed everything in its path. When the soldiers finally made it to the north, in this small village in 1979, they immediately rounded up the villagers and forced them to start digging their own graves. Can you imagine that? Now, after the villagers had finished digging, they themselves prepared to die. Now, their terror was real and immediate. And like all sane people facing their own death, they called out for help from high. Some called to Buddha, others called to spirits, others called to their ancestors. They were reaching out for anything or anyone who would help them in their ultimate terror. And they were wailing and crying. But one woman started to cry out for help based on a childhood memory that she had. Her mother had told her about a God who hung on the cross. Now, the woman in that moment prayed to this unknown God, because surely if this God had known suffering, then he might be moved to have compassion on them in their plight right there and then. Now suddenly, her solitary cry began to spread to all of the other villagers, and before they knew it, they were all praying to this God who hung on a cross. And as they continued praying, they're still facing their own graves. Suddenly their wailing and their crying begins to turn into a calmness. And then everything goes quiet. They turn around, and their soldiers, the ones who were about to put them to death, were gone. As the old woman finished telling the story, she told the missionary that ever since that day 20 years ago, the villagers had been waiting for someone to come and to share the rest of the story about the God who hung on the cross. My friends, the story of the God who hung on the cross is not news to us, but it should be heard anew today and every day of our lives with newness of heart. And that is what this Holy Week is all about. Don't take it for granted simply because you've heard it 1,000 times. Come back each day this week with eagerness and hope, with the same kind of eagerness and hope that led the Cambodian people in that small village to wait to hear the rest of the story. The God who hung on the cross changed them and saved them. And he wants to do the same for us. The palms that you hold in your hands right now are really an apt symbol of the human struggle that you and I go through. We're so fickle. Some days we are ready to cry out, Hosanna to the Son of David, and we're excited about our faith and we're ready to go. And we, like palm branches, are lush and green and vibrant and excited. But then in the afternoon heat, wait a little while, and what happens? They're crusted over. They're stiff as a board. They're gross yellow. And our hosannas turn to crucify hymns. This is the paradox of this day. And the God who hung on the cross knew that each one of us would struggle with this. And he died for us anyway. The immense love of God is the story that we must hear again and again because we need it. And when our palms get all crusted over, he can return them again and again to lush green. And our crucifies him from today can turn back into hosannas. But we have to be invested. We have to come and listen to the story. So my friends, come back. The story gets really good. And it doesn't end with the God who hung on the cross. I'm not going to tell you the ending. You have to come back to hear it. But it's really good, I promise you. So come, let us listen. Come, let us adore the God who hung on the cross.